We're going to begin with a walkthrough of the frequently made mistakes for assignment 3. Most people did very well, so great job. Some people struggled with some of the things we're about to talk about. Make sure you document your code. Make sure your code compiles. Make sure you implement all the to-do tasks. Some people didn't do those things, so their code was not reviewed as closely as people who did that stuff. There were some issues with the proxies. Here's the get movies proxy. Make sure that you check for the strategy correctly. That's incorrect. That's not the way you check to see if two strings are equal to each other in Java. So you could use ChatGPT to answer the question if you're not sure how to do that. Please name this method get movies, not movies. Otherwise, the test won't work. Here, you don't need to put the path variable, path query. You don't have to put that after the path variable because we have the name query. It figures out the name, so you can omit that. Otherwise, the tests complain. Down here, if you look carefully, you'll see that this is passing in a request body, but it's marked as a get exchange, so that's the wrong annotation to use there, so make sure you fix that. Another issue without needing to put watched movie or max count after the path variable annotation, so you can remove those, please. This path is wildly incorrect. That's not the right way to specify the path that you need to have here. Those things need to be fixed. Please call your method recommendations. In other words, omit the get prefix, so it'll work with the skeletons. You also need to check whether the value of strategy equals ParallelFlux, not just checking to see if it's blank, so that needs to be improved. Down here, please make sure you call your methods the right names. Omit the get prefix, please. Let's see, and then this is this is backwards. This is checking to see if something is equal to ParallelFlux, if the strategy is equal to ParallelFlux, and then throwing an exception, which is not what you want to do. You actually want to do something useful there. Now we're over here into the client beans file. Notice you don't want to be using retrofit to make the ParallelFlux API. You need to use HTTP interface and the stuff that we talked about in class to do that. So that'll solve a lot of problems here. Now we're moving to the other side. We're moving over to the server side. You don't need to call load movies from database anywhere. That's something that is done in the base service via a bean. Over here, you, for the moment, for the test, don't refactor your code to call get all movies. You have to expand it. The test at the moment expects it to be expanded. This is too complicated for doing the sorting. Just use comparator.comparing and sort on the title method reference. And if you do that, it'll be fine. You don't need to ignore case. So you can omit that. For the get recommendations method in the service, the ParallelFlux service that takes a single string. Down here, make sure you do step 1 properly. You need to look down below and find the helper method that handles all these things and abstracts away a lot of the details here. Please also don't use equals ignore case, just use equals. And for goodness sakes, never block. You try as much as possible when you're in a Flux or reactive program not to block. And this is the wrong call to make here. There's a different variant that you can use with just a single movie, and it's the one that uses a heap as opposed to having to sort everything. Now we're moving on to get recommendations that takes a list of watched movies. So this kind of code is way too complicated. You just need to convert watched movies into a stream, filter out any movies that aren't in the movie map using the appropriate check. I think you can use the method reference there, and then convert the results into a list. And probably not a bad idea to also make sure that you don't have any duplicates in that list. So this is overkill. You definitely don't need to use parallel streams. And also, please get in the habit of using toList rather than collect toList. And then down here, the map method that goes along later has more to it than just allocating an empty ranking object, which you'll see. And then here, this is calling the wrong get top recommendations method. That you want to use the one that does sorting here because we have a list of movies rather than just a single movie. Simple little minor thing, whenever you write code like this with a lambda expression, that can be collapsed into a method reference. So please get in the habit of doing that. Your compiler, your IDE should give you a prompt to tell you to do that change, or it'll actually do the change for you. Down here, please don't use a for loop or for each loop. Please don't allocate the watched movies list using new array list. That's very error prone. So just use a stream here, as we talked about above, and get rid of all this extra code that is error prone and tedious to write. And also make sure you bail out if, when you do this, there's nothing left in the watched movies list. This is using the wrong version of watched movies here. It's using the old one, not the one that you've basically filtered out any duplicates. This code is too complicated. Don't have a loop. There's a helper method called cosine similarity utils, sum of cosines. Please use that here to kind of clean this up. This particular code is subtly buggy because it doesn't make a deep copy of the watched movies parameter. And so as a consequence, we're actually updating the original parameter, which is not what we want. We need to make a copy of it. So please follow the instructions above by using a stream with filter and toList and so on to do that. And also, please don't write code like this. There's all kinds of problems. First of all, whenever it runs off the end of the screen, it's just hard to look at. Secondly, it's not able to be commented thoroughly. And this code is also missing a bunch of steps. So it needs to be fixed. It's well-rounded in things that need to be fixed. Don't call get all movies here for sure. That's going to return entirely the wrong set of things. You don't want a flux stream of ranking objects. You want a flux stream of map entry objects corresponding to the movies map. And again, you have to make sure you do the right calls here. You need to use the map entry get key method as opposed to what's being shown here. And then down here, there's no need to call sort. There's a call at the end of the method that does the get top recommendations in a sorted manner, so you don't need to call sorting here. Instead, you want to use map, and you want to create the ranking object based on the map entry contents and the sum of cosines method. So that's the summary of issues. As I said before, 95% of people did great, and so I didn't have a whole lot to comment on. I tried to at least give you one comment in one file if you did a good job, just so you know I looked at your code. But there were some people who had these issues, so please make sure you're addressing them, and it's the final implementation, final solution that you have to submit is due on Wednesday in a couple days. So that way, you should be all done with this class by the time that final exams start.